Hello and welcome to my ninth O-scale layout construction video. In this video we begin in scene 6, putting up some of the masonite backdrop. This is some repurposed material from the original backdrop, which was a little narrower, and it's perfect for this scene because the backdrop is narrower in this particular location. Of course, we use some recessed sheetrock screws and then cover that with some joint compound, smooth it out, and then paint it with the same bare Utah Sky blue paint. Let that dry up. So again, you'll see the two different variations in thickness. The left is the original and the right is the current thickness. But we won't use that. The reason being is that there'll be some mountains in this scene. And as you'll see coming up, that you'll see the backdrop, which is more of a west coast type of view. And again, we plan to have mountains come up, and there'll be tunnel portals in this area. So there it is. There's the backdrop up now, all in place. Once we have that in place, and we turned our attention to the track work again. We still had one more piece of backdrop to go up, and that's in scene 5. But so I kind of worked a little bit in reverse here, going back. And a few different angles of that, so you can see. See, I've used some scrap 2x4s in between to space out the masonite and hold it up in place. And back to the track work now, which is basically is laid in place, trying to figure out where to put the track and how to cut the plywood scrap pieces to make the curves, and then figure out the elevation for that. Most of this is, well, it's all 3/4 inch, but some of it's plywood and some of it's the subflooring material that I've been using in the rest of the layout. So on occasion, like I said, again, I have some scrap and would repurpose that if necessary, in lieu of having to buy another sheet of plywood. Try to save on expense. The track on the far right is a reversing loop. The track in the middle is the passing siding, and the track on the far left is the main. Now after that's decided, I started putting down some cork. I prefer to lay my cork down with staples. I do not glue it. And for this reason too, that I've been able to take it back up and repurpose it many times without having to replace the glue. I see people glue that, and I always wonder, like, why do they do that? But so it's not necessary to do that. Some staples works just fine, and then you use a hammer to flatten them down nice and smooth. Lay your track work down. Pre-drill your holes. Use some black screws, and blends right in. Works great. I crimp all the connections and make sure all the pins and everything in the connections are nice and tight. And if necessary, then I solder in power leads as I go. I tend to grind off the black, which is part of the phantom rail in the center, so that way the solder adheses nice and securely. I don't use acid core solder, I use rosin core solder, in case you were wondering. Again, just some different angles of that, and you can see the track work is now screwed down in this location. All ready to go into a number 8 switch on the upper left there. Yeah. I pre-painted some black paint in the reversing loop area. It'll eventually be concealed. That'll be inside the mountain. You won't see that. Part of the reason I painted black was to cover up the pink foam that was there. That stuck out. And in the scene 4 now, I started to lay down the plywood, the underlayment. Get that pieced in. I'm trying to basically tie in now between scene 6 all the way over to scene 2, where we last left off. Everything is done below, so now it's just a matter now of buttoning it up, putting the top layer on, then connecting scene 5 up to this elevation here in the top right. I shouldn't say top right, it's lower right, excuse me. I use some 2x4s here, not for strength, mostly for spacing. Some scrap that I had because I wanted to space out this wall, this separation between scene 4 and scene 5 to support the masonite, give me the thickness I was after for that. As we talked about in previous videos, I stayed away from using 2x4 material because of the weight and also the expense. The price of materials has gone up so much. I found that using this particular wood here, this pine 3/4, it's actually what they call it 1x4, but it's really 3/4 by 3.5, is more than sufficient and a lot less, very easy to work with and a lot less expensive and lighter weight. Now I have scene 5 tied into scene 4, as you can see here, and I've added the cork and laid down the track. After the track work is put together, I have a little test car I run around that has a like a Scotch-Brite, like a Brillo pad type of scratcher on it that cleans off the track, and I wipe that down with an old t-shirt also to get any residue off, and then test it with my tester, and then run a locomotive around it to make sure everything is okay. Some test cars as well to make sure there's no problems with derailments, burrs, or anything like that, and make sure that's all cleaned up. Here we come into scene 4, track 1 on the left and track 2 on the right. So this is beginning of a long passing siding. And coming from the tunnel here, I've added a piece of masonite, which I'll paint, and then extend the backdrop in scene 4 onto the outer edge. And we see it from the back side. It's hard to add some of the masonite fascia as well in this particular scene, on scene 4 that is. Eventually that'll go all the way around the layout, and we will paint that. And I'm starting to put some blue on here. I see a scene like this, it reminds me that I started to paint and then realized I didn't take a photo of it, so I'd stop and do that. I've taken a lot of photos over the years, and it's been very beneficial to look back and see the progress and see some things perhaps that were not apparent when I was in the room that I could see, and perhaps even go back and make adjustments. So now I've started getting my refinery in place, although I don't see the sidings there just yet. They'll be coming along in another video. Track 1 in the foreground, I have the cork laid down. What I like to do when I do my radius, I lay the track work out and then use a Sharpie to draw. Sometimes I've made a template like a board and put a nail at one end and then swung it out like a compass. But oftentimes, since this is a Ross track, which is pre-made radius track, it's very easy to just lay it out, use a Sharpie to mark the center line, get that out of the way, put your cork down, and then lay your track right over, and it goes very quickly. If I was laying the Gargraves track, it's a little more detail there to draw your line, but once you lay your cork in place, then it's easy to bend the flex track to match the cork. Just a few more pictures of this. Again, all I have is track 1 finished, and then carried on from there. So getting ready to wrap up. Thank you so very much for watching and all the positive comments. And I'll have some more videos posted very soon. Thank you very much for watching.